2 plastic Easter eggs filled with mung beans, 2 Christmas tree ornaments filled with jingle bells, 2 wads of masking tape tied together with a pink ribbon.
Welcome back to rating alternative engagement rings based on whether or not a geologist thinks they're a good idea. Hi, it's me, I'm the geologist. Some of these are just not a good idea. I'm really sorry. First up is the most highly requested one, moonstone. Which that's just feldspar, babe. It's a variety of potassium feldspar or orthoclase, and it's similar to labradorite in that it has this nice little Schiller effect. In this, it's called adulorescence. Now that's beautiful and all, but the mineral itself has a hardness of 6 to 6.5 on a scale of 1 to 10, where diamond is the hardest, so it is prone to some scratching and chipping. There was even somebody on the last video saying that they had a moonstone ring and it chipped so much they got something different, so not a good idea. Along the lines of a similar visual appearance, we have opal. This is the worst idea. This is the worst. Don't ever, no. Opal isn't a mineral, it's like a mineral adjacent that we call that a mineraloid. It's an amorphous form of silica and it's hydrated, so it has anywhere between 6 to 10% water content on average. And with that comes all of these rules about the amount of wet that it can or should not get. It can dry out, it can crack, it can get too wet, so wet that once it dries, it completely dries out. And it's also really porous and it will absorb oils from your hands or anything that you're touching, and it can like ruin the stone and crack it. On top of that, it only has a hardness between 5 and 6, which can mean that it scratches and chips. It's the worst idea out of all of them, I think. Okay, there's still more. Part 3?
This is a list of 5 things that I deem as ableist, and people keep asking me, are you serious with these lists? Are you joking? I would never joke. Of course I'm serious. Anyway, at number 1 we have the concept of being outside. I just think it's completely unnecessary and wildly inaccessible. If I roll into anything as much as soft dirt, that's the end for me. Number 2, we have bounce houses. Growing up, whenever I went to a friend's birthday party and they had one of these, I took it as a personal attack. I knew that this meant I'd be chatting up the parents for the next 2 hours. Oh, you're having the time of your life in an inflatable castle? I'm talking to your mom, and she's pretty nice. Number 3, and speaking of kids' birthday parties, we have arcades. Not one of these machines is accessible. I've never had a good time in this. 90% of the appeal are the neon lights anyway. If this was a normally lit room, it would be sad, and you know it. Number 4, we have the Olympics. I just don't think you need to rub it in my face by bringing every one of the most athletic people into one place and then showing me how athletic they are. I get it. I can't do it. And last but not least, we have the theater, or really anywhere that I have to reserve a seat. You're telling me I have to pay to reserve a seat when I'm literally bringing my own? That doesn't sit right with me.
Naming an Asian character Cho Chang would be like naming a Jewish character Anthony Goldstein, or like naming a black character Kingsley Shacklebolt, or making the bankers goblins, or the house elves slaves who actually enjoy it, or revealing that a character is queer after the book has been published and movies have been made, or making their queer partner be incredibly obviously abusing and emotionally manipulating and grooming a minor. Oh. Wait a sec.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I trade you your bones for this.
Oh no.
You make trade?
Huh?
You make trade?
I like my bones.
No, you give me your bones. Your bones for this.
In the post-apocalyptic wasteland that is capitalism, our only hope lies in puppets. Survival Street is a new comic from Dark Horse that has some of the least subtle social satire I've ever seen in a comic, and I mean that in a good way. In the not-too-distant future, the Supreme Court votes to give corporations the right to run for public office, and within 3 years they control 83% of elected positions and have terminated or privatized every public service, land, and utility. And one of the first victims of this act is public broadcast television and educational TV shows like Salutation Street, were quickly shut down by the new Immigration and Customs Enforcement Division, or NICE. Now the puppets who are on the show have become anti-fascist radicals fighting to save the youth of America from this capitalist hellscape. When the puppets find out the son of the president has been selling off immigrant children separated from their families at the border to the highest bidder out of their family's Florida beach resort, they attempt to pull off an elaborate heist to rescue the children and rob the rich blind. This is one of those comic book concepts that sounds completely incoherent in the pitch, and yet it all comes together in the execution. And while the satire is not subtle, I don't think the people who need to hear what this book is trying to say are going to listen. Regardless, I'm looking forward to the next issue.
And she doesn't give a damn about me. 'Cause I'm just a teenage dirtbag baby. Yeah, I'm just a teenage dirtbag baby. Listen to Iron Maiden, maybe we'll be.
Present-day Cubans still feel the effects of the 60s. Their country is worthy of preservation. USA wanted a land to keep slaves, and eventually Cuba is right where that vested decisions, because they had paid off Batista to work with them and get control of the US again. Greedy for money, the way that their raction was growing, you think they're on estrogen. Wanted their sugar and all their commodity. First when they took them from Spain as a colony. Funded Batista, enacted the plat which gave control of their whole foreign policy. USA conquered within the vicinity. They had killed thousands of 20 specifically. Cubans were left with no money, no power, no leader. The states took political liberty, making business out of helpless nation. It's imperialism, it is domination. They exploited Cuba, then they try to hide it, make sure shit ain't come out like it's constipation. 44 Batista sent the Cubans money, fund the US Army, and he didn't conceal it. Struggle Cubans faces just like real, cause you won't understand it all unless you really feel it. Goodness gracious.
Say peacock and no one bats an eye. Say poopcock and society goes wild. Society!
So you know how I mentioned that excluding trans women from women's sports would affect all women? Well, here's proof. Recently in Utah, a girl who was not transgender, a cisgender girl, was accused of being transgender because she, quote, outclassed her peers. Remember, she is not trans. And yet she's being accused of being trans because she doesn't fit some sort of box of what womanhood or girlhood is supposed to look like. Utah is one of the 18 plus states in the country that has banned trans girls from playing girls' sports. And this isn't the first investigation of cisgender girls that is happening. So I'm here to remind you that excluding trans people from sports is going to affect everybody. Remember that in order to exclude the trans people, you have to test everybody. You create this box of womanhood that you then police every other woman in the category against. So if somebody doesn't fit it, say she's too tall or too fast or too strong or too muscular or whatever else, then that girl can be accused of being transgender and then potentially thrown out. The state investigated this specific girl in Utah all the way back to kindergarten to make sure that she was always assigned female. Not only is this invasive, but it is also unnecessary. Remember that in some states they're also proposing genital exams, meaning that kids can have their genitals examined in order to play sports. I don't know about you all, but I don't know anybody who plays sports with their penis or lack thereof. And if they are, that's a very different problem. Investigating the genitals of children for fairness sounds a lot like pedophilia. Transgender athletes, especially transgender children, are not threats to sports. Transphobia and trying to exclude us is.
The owner's racist and they should not give their money to this establishment.
Definitely will.
And this is the manager who comes out every day to intimidate me while I'm just standing here with a sign.
Tasty egg sandwich. People who are adamantly anti-homeless are absolute dipshits incapable of critical thinking. Like, I don't know how y'all don't understand by now that stripping away resources and moving homeless shelters outside of town just makes it harder for homeless people to live in town, thus intensifying homelessness. Y'all are fucking weirdos. I bet that some of y'all think that, like, taking a shit outside Panera Bread is, like, grounds for execution. Get a fucking life. I want to eat that.
Do you want to know why Christians are so susceptible to conspiracy theories? It's because you were groomed as a child to accept ideas without evidence and were never trained in critical thinking skills.
Con las uñas te puedo arañar. Cat, kitty, cat, cat, kitty, cat, cat. Corta las cámaras, córtala ya. Cat, cat, catarás. Cat, kitty, cat, cat, kitty, cat, cat. Cat, cat, catarás. Cat, kitty, cat, cat, kitty, cat, cat. Cat, kitty, cat, kitty, cat, cat.
So I am transmasculine non-binary, and a couple of days ago I had a breast reduction. And for me, that's a gender-affirming surgery, and I'm gonna show you why. So let's say I wanna wear a cute little crop top, show off my sternum piece. I can do that, and I can have little itty-bitty boobies. But if I decide that I don't wanna look like I have boobies, I essentially look like I have had top surgery when I'm wearing a button-down, and I can bind if I want to, and it will actually work. I just want to share this because we see a lot of transmasculine people talk about top surgery, and that's great, but that's also not the only option. And wanting to have boobies doesn't make you any less trans.
Taxes are inherently theft, and I shouldn't have to pay for handouts for poor people. Except for cops. I will pay for cops because they keep the poor people out of my neighborhood after I have denied them healthcare and affordable housing. Everyone in this country has the exact same opportunity. If you screw up your life, that's your fault. It doesn't matter if you're born into poverty or a region with poorly funded schools or a historically marginalized group. And even though a 2013 Pew Research study showed that libertarians are likely to be 94% white and 68% male, we are the ones who understand that everyone has the same opportunity. The best way to help people actually is to not help them. In fact, the best way for me to help them is to advocate for economic policies that effectively hurt them. Because the more hurt you are, the more you can help yourself. There is no greater feeling than pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, overcoming adversity, and making your own success. How did I do it? Well, according to a 2013 Pew Research study, I'm likely to be 94% white and 68% male.
I have a theory on it. I have a hypothesis and a theory, and we are speaking about it today.
3 common things that wouldn't exist without Black people. 1. The 3-light traffic signal. After witnessing an accident, inventor Garrett Morgan created a new traffic signal that had a warning light to alert drivers that they would need to stop. He sold the concept to General Electric for $40,000. It is the base design for the traffic light we use today. 2. Refrigerated trucks. Every time you purchase fresh produce from the supermarket, you can thank Black inventor Frederick McKinley Jones. In the mid-1930s, he created the roof-mounted cooling system that keeps goods cold on trucks for long journeys. His thermal control company was critical during World War I, helping preserve food, blood, and other supplies during the war. And 3. Home security. After she and her husband noticed increasing crime in their neighborhood and a slow response from police, Marie Van Brittany Brown created a closed-circuit television security system that was the forerunner to the modern home security system we use today.
It already stinking. Oh my goodness. It already stink. Oh my.
Down to they're all just universally mocking autistic people. And I can already hear you. No, they're not mocking autistic people. They're just mocking people with an overly performative speech pattern who over-enunciate their consonants, who are so...
I love this video because I don't think people understand how alienating it is being autistic. Like, people think everything that we say and do is cringy. So some of us just... Well... So some of us just stop saying and doing things completely, but then they think that's cringy too. It got to the point where my mom was like, don't talk around my boyfriend. She didn't want to introduce me to him because she was embarrassed of me. It's her birthday, by the way, and she did. Hallelujah. Anyway, it's a very alienating experience. And I know developmentally communicating with other people is supposed to be good for you, but hot take, but I think it might not be that good for autistic people. I think us just having friends online and us just doing our own thing and engaging in our special interest. Listen, if I never had to interact with another human being ever again, I'd be okay. There are some people that I really love, so I would like to communicate with you, but you know what I mean. It really gets to a point where you just get so paranoid about everything you do. Or then autistic people, or whatever we fucking call it, the people who don't have autism, they feel the need to bring to your attention how cringy you are, so then that just makes you extra insecure. I really don't think people understand how exhausting masking is. It is so... Imagine just having to stand completely still for hours on end. And then if you move, everybody would point it out. But they wouldn't say it. They would just stare at you like they were very uncomfortable. And this is why autistic folks have so many substance abuse problems. And I've recently quit everything and I am fucking terrified. I don't think I'll ever socialize ever again, unless I already know the people. Oh my God, I'm having flashbacks. But in summary, a lot of us choose isolation because y'all are just bullies and you never grow out of it, like ever. And you're pathetic, and your karmic debt is gonna be ridiculous.
He was a boy, she was a girl. Can I make it any more obvious? He was a punk, she did ballet. What more can I say? He
In a world filled with racists and bigots, why are we directing any amount of hatred towards furries? They're not hurting anyone. Am I a furry? No. Are furries chill? Yes. It is not my thing, and I do not know much about furries besides my exposure to them online, but I have never had anything but a pleasant interaction with a furry, especially in real life. These are people who just want to find a decent way to express themselves. Why make fun of them for that? There are people in this world who center their identity around their car or a favorite sports team. What do you care if somebody else finds a different way to express themselves? If you're a furry, pardon the terminology. I know it's more than just expressing yourself, but I'm trying to make a point. Ugh, furry convention. Oh, you mean a place where a bunch of people are going to come together and enjoy a shared thing they like? Might I add, in a way that doesn't harm anyone? Furries as a punching bag has become a joke in and of itself, and I just don't understand the hate. People call it cringe, people call it weird. It's none of those things. These people are just being genuine, and if you're being genuine, it's never cringe. If you find something in this messed up world that makes you happy, engaged, and gives you a community, hold on to that for dear life. That is what these people are doing, and I respect them for it. Are there problematic people among them? Yes, because there's problematic people among everything. But I can think of far more widely accepted things that have far more horrible people in it. So let's stop dunking on people who are trying to find a way to enjoy life, and instead, dunk on the people who are trying to stop others from enjoying their life. Be well.
I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy unless, of course, we're talking about my enemy, Gwyneth Paltrow. Fuck you, Gwyneth Paltrow. You know what you did.
You looked so
different. Yeah. Well, my hair was buzzed, and I didn't have these sweet old tatties yet.
You played guitar, right?
Still do. Still do. You should come see us.
You know, you're not what I thought you'd be like.
Mean and scary. Yeah. Well, I actually kind of thought you'd be kind of mean and scary too. Terrifying.
But I always say people in these countries don't actually care. It's people in the diaspora who care.
This is so important when we're talking about things like cultural appropriation, because a big reason why so many people in the diaspora care is because a lot of us have grown up around overwhelming whiteness that tries to rid us of our cultural identity, heritage, and pride. In these countries, whiteness is seen as the most desirable and the standard. So anything that does not adhere to these standards or benefit whiteness is seen as lesser than. And in order to assimilate in a country like this, a lot of people turn to internalized hate and racism. And this can happen from experiencing anything from a straight up hate crime to bringing food or wearing clothes from your culture and being shamed and made fun of for it. So when we see white people wearing things for a culture that we were not allowed to appreciate, it is so frustrating and it is just a slap in the face.
Hurt me, baby, put it on my life.
Who is someone that you believe more people should know about?
More people absolutely need to know about Daniel Day, aka Dapper Dan. Hey, this is Ike with Tiny Mike back with another breakdown. Today we're talking about Dapper Dan and his relationship with Gucci. Dapper Dan is also known as the king of knockoffs. In the 80s and 90s, he was living in Harlem, New York, where he's from. He's a very talented tailor, and he began using luxury goods and making knockoff versions for rappers and other people in the community. People like LL Cool J, James Jackson, and Floyd Mayweather all wore his stuff all the time because it was the best looking stuff around. In the 80s, he even had a 24-hour tailor shop. He used a lot of monogram luxury garments to make his custom made-to-order pieces, including this beautiful mink sleeve bomber jacket for Diane Dixon in 1989. Now, as you can imagine, all these fashion houses weren't super happy with this black man from Harlem using their logo and the designs to make awesome, beautiful pieces for the black community, so they sued him. A lot. In 1992, there was a raid that shut down his store basically for good. Fast forward to 2017, and Gucci came around and basically copied his exact idea without credit. The piece over here is a piece that Gucci made that was supposed to be an homage to Dapper Dan, but a lot of people were saying it's appropriation, especially because of how they treated him in the 90s, which I agree with. So after that, all the hate, all the things that are going on, they decided to work with him, which is where he's kind of at now. Dapper Dan even had his own collection with Gucci a couple years ago, and it was very successful, and he's been brought back basically into the light because of this whole thing. I could go on. Dapper Dan is an amazing designer, and he's going to be a big influence, I think, moving forward. Hopefully I have more time to do more stuff related to my dissertation and subtle racism. But for now, follow for more.
You're too slow.
Hey, this is NBL Ohaji from the Nation of Black Liberation, and today we're remembering the black lives that were taken by police officers. Let's get it started. This is part 4 of the California edition. I would like to remind everybody that California does have the highest casualties by police officers here in the United States. Now, before we begin, trigger warning. Our first victim is James Lacey, who was shot by 2 California police officers after they attempted to evict him from his home. Lacey refused any access to his apartment to the officers, even threatening the officers, claiming that he would kill them. Officers were able to break the lock, encountering a frantic Lacey running with an object in his hand. He was killed right then and there. It was later discovered that the object in his hand was a replica gun with a red tip. It had also been reported that officers knew that Lacey had suffered mental health issues. The family has sued the state, stating that they could have de-escalated the situation and he would have still been alive. Our next victim is Michael McIntyre, who was shot and killed during a mental health crisis. Police were called after McIntyre assaulted his mother. McIntyre fled on foot while police officers were chasing him in squad cars. McIntyre began throwing rocks at the officers, hitting one of them in the head, resulting into stitches. More than 20 rounds were shot at McIntyre. At least 7 of them hit him. Officers were cleared for the shooting, but later shown that McIntyre posed no threat. Our last victim is Desmond Phillip, who also died during a mental health crisis. Desmond moved to Chico, California after getting induced seizures from a police brutality he had in Sacramento. On March of 2017, police were called because EMT was afraid of Desmond Phillip. It's been said that Desmond had a knife during his mental health crisis. After 7 minutes of being outside the door, officers stormed in, tased, and shot Desmond, killing him. The story seems to be a bit botchy due to the fact that officers were not wearing body cams during this time.
Why women who don't set boundaries in relationships get treated way better by men.
Here, let me translate that for you. He's saying that he doesn't like strong and independent women because they make him insecure about his fucking masculinity. Because patriarchy told him he has a natural or like fucking God-given right to be dominant or like, you know, fucking leading or being alpha, being the most important thing. Well, of course, reality is very far from that. And when he faces the reality, his monkey brain is like, oh shit, I'm afraid now. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't like this. So I'm going to try to dominate by treating them like shit. Because otherwise they feel worthless. They don't have anything that they bring to the fucking table. I know like some men are going to be like, oh, I bring money to the table. Brother, then don't fucking cry when that is the only reason they date you. Because let's be real, brother. Like, you know your worth. And it's not a lot. And that's what makes you insecure, because if you take the fucking traditional gender roles, like the masculinity, femininity, whatever the shit, you take that shit out of a relationship and you know you have like literally no power in that relationship. You can't control them. They have no fucking reason to listen to you. You can't force them to do shit or like treat them like shit, because once they fucking start setting boundaries, they're gonna fucking dump your ass. And that makes you afraid. know what else makes you afraid? The fact that they can challenge you, because once they start challenging you, you know there's no way you can catch up with them. And that makes you feel insecure because you're afraid they're just going to dump your ass and find someone who can fucking keep up with them. You like the traditional gender roles because that gives you a power you didn't have to fucking earn. I mean, if you look at a relationship as a power dynamic, you're fucked up to begin with, but still. But let's be real with ourselves. So many men would rather people bow down to them for no fucking apparent reason at all, instead of bettering themselves, because that forces them out of their fucking comfort zone. The comfort zone that they never had to leave in their entire fucking lives because society doesn't oblige them to. And when someone challenges them out of their fucking comfort zone, they lose their shit. Listen, I have my insecurities too, okay? I have my traumas. Sometimes they translate into, toxic behavior. But if you're going out there and crying about how women will not worship you, you're kind of like fucking pathetic. I really hope you don't ever get to breed.